Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Amigos. This is a show where we answer all of our Discord community's questions. If you would like to submit a question for Ask the Amigos, join our Patreon,
Submit.
patreon.com/Amigos podcast. That's right. So we lead things off with Edvin Helen. He says, have you ever tried beef tartare? Aaron?
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to have any tartar.
Well, do you know what it is?
I don't think I do. I've heard the
Okay. When
term.
I explain what it is, you're gonna know if you've tried it or not. It's raw beef.
Oh, then I don't think I have. No, I don't think I've ever had that boat.
Yeah, I have never tried beef tartare either. I've had the opportunity. A lot of times at the frou frou restaurants they serve it, but it basically just looks like raw meat, and raw
Yeah.
meat is not something that appeals to me. You know,
You know, Centaura
call me
mentions the
crazy.
Centaura mentions he only knows it from Mr. Bean. That's exactly where I know it from. The exact same episode where he eats a bunch of it and doesn't like it. So there you go.
Mm. Uh, Pete Oz. Pete Oz. I'm actually going to be meeting up with Pete Oz for lunch in London when I'm in England. So it's
Cool
nice to hear
name.
from Pete. He says, "I love your theme music. I sometimes find myself randomly humming it. How did that come about?" Well, um, I went through a big playlist of Amiga songs on YouTube. You know, they have those videos that are like 10 hours of Amiga music. And I found one that sounded suitably wacky. And that was our original theme song. It was called Manic Moose, I believe, is the original name of that tune.
Remember we
And then
covered that
late,
game and we were like, "Oh, look, that's what the music came from that game."
and then later on down the line, we got a listener sent us a reworked version that he did with real instruments, and I have tried like crazy to find the email exchange. Normally I keep everything, but for whatever reason this has been lost in the midst of time. I wish I knew who this guy was and what happened to him, but we've used his version since probably 2016 or 2017, since fairly
Yeah.
early on.
Thanks, the guy. We appreciate it,
Yeah,
whoever you are.
yeah. And he says also, this is Pete Oz continues, what is Gamble Train and the reasoning behind that? You want to take that one,
Man,
Aaron?
do you know how much I miss the gamble train right now? Because it was a phone that was functional. So it's stupid. But back when our format hasn't changed much. We've rearranged stuff. And so when we used to do the news, I didn't have a computer or a laptop. I would just look at all my stuff on my phone. But and so I would sit there and read it off the phone. And I would watch The Simpsons one time, and Professor Frank has the Gambletron 5000, and so I would call my phone the Gambletron, and boat is boat, and just decided that I was saying Gamble Train, and so that's how that happened. I don't know.
And
Did
now
you
the
know what
Gamble
I was talking
Train.
about, or I don't?
No, I had no clue.
Yeah, you're
And
not a
so
big
I was
Simpsons
just
guy.
I am a big Simpsons guy, but I just haven't seen that. I haven't seen that episode.
Mm,
But the I just thought Gamble Train was like a cool train that delivered your Amiga news, and that's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah. I do
It's a
like
Gamble.
I love your singing of that. You know,
Thank you.
it's quite fetching. Yeah.
And he says, "Keep up the great work, gents. Seeing your podcast drop every week always brings happiness." Thank you, Pete.
Thanks,
I look
Oz.
forward to lunching with you in England.
Is
What do you
that a
think of lunching
handle?
with
Or is that his real name?
Pete? No, that is his. That's a handle. He didn't tell me
Oh,
his real name.
because that I
I
was gonna
shan't
say
reveal that on the
that'd be
air.
kind of a cool name, man.
Yeah, it would be cool. Pajako6502 asks, what are or have been your favorite drinking games, and when was the last time you played any drinking game? I'll take this one first, Aaron. I hate drinking games. I don't like playing them. I like to drink for pleasure, and drinking games force you to drink when you do not want to drink, and that's not pleasure for me.
Plus, we'd have to have a game for you to play it where all the drinking takes place quickly and right up front.
That's right.
Boat is not the subtleties of gaming and drinking are lost on Boat. And to be honest with you, Boat, I'm often like that myself. You're right. I don't want to have to sit around wait for the ball to go into cup before I drink. I just want to drink the
Mhm.
drink.
Right.
I have played games. I have played like hands of poker. I've played beer pong. I've played games where every time someone says something on a show, you have to take a drink. I'm trying to think of the last time I did this. I'm trying to think of what it was, and they said it over and over. I can't remember what it was. It's funny. I remember years ago someone said that our show would be great for a drinking game. Every time I said like wacky, every time you said something, but I don't know if we just inadvertently stopped being so repetitive, or maybe got better at being on shows. I don't think we're as bad as we used to be. But if you go back and listen to the old Amigos, there were certain phrases we would use a lot because I go back and listen to them in horror. So I mean, I still listen to them in horror now, but the phrases aren't quite as bad. But I mean, but the thing is, we don't work anything up ahead of time. So whatever's going on in our conversation is just some word or phrase that we were using at that time. I don't think we're as bad now, Bode. I hope.
Mm, yeah. I can't remember. I'm sure in college I played beer pong. Um, but again, like when I was in college, I can't, when I'd go to a party, I'd be like, all right, it's time to get drinking. I wouldn't
Yeah.
need no game. No game
No.
necessary.
Yeah.
And
The
so,
game is drink. Drink the
right.
beer. Drink the booze.
David Hearn Ryder asks, Boat, what do you miss most about South Korea? Um, Lots. I miss my job in South Korea. I had a great job teaching middle school English. I miss being able to walk everywhere. It was great. I miss the park. It's out in Ulsan. The park was great. I miss the hiking trail behind my house that was up. It led me up on a mountain. I miss the food. I miss my friends there. I miss the landscape. I miss all of the things to see. I miss being so close to Japan where I could take a 45-minute ferry and be in Japan. Um,
The
I the
hotties.
only thing the only thing I don't miss is the hotties because I'm now married, and I don't miss my pad because the pad was small in Korea. They're not known for their massive housing estates.
How was it
Um,
half the size? Was the pad that have a basement that's smaller than the one you've currently got?
my pad in Korea was a quarter of the size of the basement.
I thought
So
so.
that's yeah. And so that's what I don't miss. But everything else, I mean, if I could move to the same job that I have now, and if Eep would be amicable to it, I would move back to South Korea tomorrow. No
I think
question
that
about
ship sailed, restaurant boy.
it. We're here for the duration,
Yeah.
which is fine. Which is fine. Is to Scooby asks, have you ever created a piece of visual art that you were really proud of? Aaron?
I mean, like a painting or a photo. I don't,
Anything, visual art.
I work in the medium of uh, blabby idiot. I don't really have a lot of things I can put that on a canvas. So I don't think so. I mean, I will say this is so ludicrous. I'm just gonna say there have been shows or streams or uh, um, little gimmicks that I've done that I've been extremely proud of because they technically went well. Does that make any
Mhm.
sense? I mean, I guess that's the closest I could think of. Well, we've had shows where I thought to myself, "My God, that went great." And so I guess that's sort of like my personal artwork because I don't really have any talent in art, but those
Life
are
is
few
your
and far
canvas.
between. Yeah. What about you?
Um, I in much the same vein, I don't know that I've ever painted or drawn anything that I was especially proud of, but, I am proud of my Retro Rewind commercials, especially the Coco one. I think
Yeah.
the Coco SEC one
I don't
is
know.
probably
British Jones is pretty awesome. I
I
love
would
that
love to
guy.
do I have several ideas. I think I've told you before about what I'd like to do with British Jones. However, I would have to construct a full puppet theater in my basement
He
to
needs his
enact
own
these
show.
things.
That guy
He
would be
does.
awesome. He needs his own retro gaming show. I want to hear what British Jones likes to play in his off time.
And so, but probably, yeah, probably the Coco SDC commercial for the Coco show is what I'm most proud of.
The one thing
Um,
about doing shows, I mean, I didn't see this coming when we started it. I've never been that creative, and it is a fun sort of a kind of a creative outlet that I
that's
didn't know
exactly what it
I
is.
didn't know I needed it. And it's as
Mhm.
fun or as painful as you let it be, depending on your mood and what you have to do. But I mean, I sat around today putting together some videos for some stuff, and I had a pretty good time doing it. And when it comes out the way you want, you're like, yeah, I did that, and I've got no talent, and I still pulled it off. That's the beautiful thing about technology. It makes you feel more talented than you actually are.
That's true. Is Too Scooby asks for his second question. Do you prefer single player, co-op, or competitive gameplay? Aaron?
Um, I like competitive gameplay a lot because you're competing for high scores, and it makes it more fun. It gives you more. It gives you more incentive. The boy
Hmm.
loves co-op. He doesn't like to fight against me because he doesn't like to lose. So we
Hmm.
do a lot of co-op, which is fine. I like that too. But I mean, if I had my druthers, I do like to go against somebody for high scores or like in a fighting game. I think that's fun.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like competitive, but I don't like same time gameplay. Like I never really got into fighting games that much, or games that you're both playing at the same time. I like having a go at something, setting a score, and then be like beat that, and then watching
Hot
the
seat.
next guy play.
Yeah.
Hot seat. That's what I like. Um, and the third and final question of the month from is to Scooby. If you could only listen to music from a single decade, what would you choose? I'll go first. 70s, no question.
Yes, 70s. And because you get just enough of the 60s in there to make it work, but just enough of the disco era to make me happy. You got to get it all in there. So yeah.
I think you've got the broadest range of stuff that I
Yeah.
like in the 70s.
Plus I didn't hate country music that era like I did in the
Right? Oh yeah.
80s.
A lot of
And
it's
so I
good.
could still listen to some country music and stuff, be like, "Oh yeah," so like opens up different avenues for me,
Mhm.
that I wouldn't have open to me in say the 80s. I think the 80s is vastly overrated for its music. I mean, the 60s and 70s like crush it in my opinion,
Yeah.
but that's just me.
Absolutely. Aaron, who or what is your favorite Doctor Who bad guy and why is it the Dalek?
It's the Dalek. It's not the Dalek. Um my favorite Doctor Who bad guy. I am partial to the Master, if I'm
What's
honest.
he do?
He's sort of like he's like Doctor Who, but he's evil. He's like the evil
Hmm.
time traveler. I wasn't so keen on the first guy, but the second guy I was quite fond of. He was a little more evil to me. And this was be the guy that was in the later Bakers and going forward. Now I will say they had a guy play the Master in some of the newer ones. Not and when I say new, I mean when they revitalized the series. They had this guy come in who took over because the master also changed his form, and the master was insane. Like there's one of my favorite bits is when it's the second part of this two-parter, and the show sucked. But there's a bit where he sings and does a dance routine to the Sister Sister song, and it's so
Weird.
good. And he's real entertaining and charismatic. But they ruined him too, just like they ruined everything. But I'll say the Master is my guy. I like the Master.
Is Doctor Who like Q on Star Trek?
No, Q's omnipotent. He can just teleport. The Doctor has like a time machine. He can be killed. Like he can be hurt. He's just a guy.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
know.
Seabreezer asks, "Hi guys, have you ever found yourself waking up in an unfamiliar place after a heavy night of boozing?"
I have woke up and forgot where I went to bed, but then I remembered. So that has happened. But I've never been like woke up and like I'm normally the person that makes sure everyone else doesn't die. And so I've always been a big guy. And I've always been, well, I mean, until recently, I was a really good drinker. I could drink a lot. So like I was generally the last guy standing almost every time. And so when you're that guy, you don't get the privilege of like having someone else take care of you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I don't know
Yeah.
much about that.
I've never done that before because whenever I drink that much, I always end up being sick and then just being miserable all night and not sleeping. I'm not one of these guys that can drink a whole lot of alcohol and just go to sleep. That's not, I can't do that.
Sometimes
So,
you want to sleep. You're begging
yeah,
for it, but no, you just
yeah,
gotta suffer.
right. Pajako 6502 asks, "What is boat stocking up and or taking orders to bring back from the UK?" I do plan on stocking up on Amiga Addict magazines while I'm
Yeah.
over there.
I'm
I'm
glad to
gonna
hear
pick up a
that.
few extra. I'm gonna pick up a few extra copies of a lot of back issues, but especially the ones that we were featured in. Aaron gave me a copy of the issue that we're in, but I want to get a couple more.
Don't get any more
Uh,
of those. I got tons of those, but I don't have the
okay,
second one. So get lots of
okay,
the second
I'll get
one.
lots of the second ones.
Yeah.
I also am going to get some. I'm going to try and get some apparel. I'm going to try and get some nice wool sweaters. I'm in the market for a fashionable hat. So I'm gonna shop the high streets while I'm over there and come back even more fashionable. I'm gonna dandified, I think is the word that I'm going to use. When you see me, you will think that is a well-dressed man.
The hats really your head, the look on your face, something like you wore that hat last week. I thought it was quite
Mhm.
fetching. You can
Yeah,
pull off the hats.
I've got a very tall head that is suited for a hat. Sort
You
of
do.
conish.
It is
Yeah.
conish. It's not as pointy
Mhm.
though.
Yeah. Control Alt Reese asks,
Mm.
how many bears could Bear Grylls bear if Bear Grylls could grill bears?
Do you know who Bear Grylls is, Boat?
He is a man that is famous for being a sort of survivalist, correct?
I agree with what you said. He is a sort of survivalist. Yes, he was in the. I think it was in like the UK Special Forces. Then he came out and he turned. He
I swear, I thought you were going to say he was a guy that was in the UK Special Olympics.
no no Special Forces. So
Okay.
here's the way I look at Bear Grylls. All right, there was a guy over here called Survivor Man. Okay, you ever heard of
Hmm.
him?
No, that
Sur-
sounds ridiculous.
well, it's not his real
Who
name,
are
but
you? I'm Survivor Man.
Survivor Man would go out with a limited amount of supplies and he would go survive for like a week in hostile environments. That was his gimmick. Like he was the only
Okay.
guy doing it, and it was a popular show. I love that show, right? And but this guy's gimmick is he's just like he's a guy. He was just a skilled survivalist, right? But he's not like
Right.
a commando or something. Well, here comes Bear Grylls, who said, "Hey, I could do that. I could hork that," and so he did it. But he added some extra crap to it. Like while we're out in the
What did he add?
woods, I'm going to drink like the urine of that snake, and I'm gonna survive off eating scum, and I'm gonna eat animals raw when they scurry up to me. I'm gonna scale a cliff. I'm gonna do all this crap. Well, and this is all fine, that's all well and good. But the problem is, like Survivor Man, when he went out in the woods, it kept like that was a shoot. He was his own cameraman. Okay,
Mhm.
when Bear Grylls went, he had a camera crew, and then after they broke, they just headed to the hotel. Like, and there's
Mm.
footage of him like doing all this survival crap, and then they pan over, and there's like a McDonald's and crap right there. So I'm like,
So
he's
you're telling
he's
you
he's
fraud is the
shifty.
term you're looking for.
Well, I mean, can he climb a mountain? Yes. Can he parachute? There was a gimmick a couple of years ago where I think he skied off Everest or something. He did something with Everest or something. Does this guy have the capability to do this stuff? Yes, but he's also a fraud. He's a known fraud, and if that
Mhm.
upsets people, tough. Get over it. This guy's a fraud. I'm not gonna let this guy be the king dong of survivalists. And all of a sudden, Survivor Man, this guy got old. Now no one knows about that guy, but everybody's about Bear freaking girl. Screw
Yeah,
that
I've
guy.
never heard of Survivor Man. Was he on
Uh,
TV?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He
Mm.
also did a great show. He was one of the first guys I ever saw who did something on being completely off the power grid. He did that too. Like this is years ago, when he was doing this stuff. If you look on YouTube, you can catch his shows. But I mean, he ran
Okay.
on like Discovery for like gosh 5 or 6 seasons. Like there was no one else doing what he was doing. He was the predecessor to all this crap on YouTube and stuff. Like there was nobody doing it. So he's really good. Bear Grylls, I've never been a fan. Good. He's got a great accent. He's also good looking. That helps,
Mm.
because Survivor Man just looks like some dude. He doesn't look. He's not good looking.
Right, right. Dave Velociraptor asks, what food is Boat looking forward to eating again when he's over here? And what food has Aaron heard about that he'd want to try in the UK? Aaron, you want to take that one first?
I watched that Great British Bake Off. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're making all these crazy, these like real super duper light pastries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to try a bunch of these British, like high end pastries. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Mm-hmm.
also, they make this bread that looks great, like all kinds of different breads and stuff. If you watch that baking show, I think you've seen it, haven't you, Boat?
I've seen, like, most of the seasons. I
I
love it.
watched. I mean, I got burned out after watching about 6 seasons or whatever, 5 or
Mm.
whatever. But I was down for a while, and like a lot of times they make food like they use meat where meat shouldn't be, like a lot.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know. I don't
They
know
have
why.
the whole concept of savory pies and things
That's
like
right,
that.
savory. Yeah, yeah. I'm not down with the pie, savory pie. I don't think. Maybe I'd try that, but I would like to
Have you
try
had
some
a
of those
chicken pot
high-end
pie
pies.
before?
I don't like chicken pot pie.
Okay, so yeah, that's basically what we've got that fills
Yeah,
that gap, so,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So what about now? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to going to just your garden variety chip shop and getting down with some kebab. I want a shawarma kebab, and I'm gonna load that thing down with the spicy sauce that they've got. It's sort of like a spicy mayo, and then get myself a pint of nice warm ale, room temperature ale, English ale, maybe
Yeah.
some old speckled hen or something like that. That is what I miss about living in England. Going to the chip shop. There was called Popeyes. They were in the high street in Sheffield, and
Uh-huh.
just getting just you can just get a mountain of meat that's carved off that elephant leg. You know what I'm talking about? The elephant leg of meat. Get it carved off there, and it's on a bed of French fries.
Is it
Cover
cooked?
it with yeah, it's cooked. It's cooked.
Is it
Because
different types of meat or
well, normally it's like it's like lamb and beef mixed together, and it's shaved off the elephant leg. I don't know if elephant leg is the right term,
yeah? Because that
but
sounds gross.
yeah,
Come up. Is it
it's
on a big spike or something?
it's
Is
on a
that
big spike, yeah. And so it goes on the fries, and then they put a whole handful of mozzarella cheese on there, and then you've got various mayonnaises and different
did
sauces,
you say there was
and
some
you
sort
just
of spicy mayonnaise or what you
yes, it's like it says I don't know exactly what it was because it's the only time I've ever had it was over there, but it's like a spicy mayo, but it's thinner than mayo. I can't
Uh-huh.
describe it.
This
But
sounds
anyway,
tremendous to me, Bo. This sounds
it's
tasty as
so
heck right here.
good.
Do
It's
you eat it
so
with
good.
bread or just eat it just
No,
straight up
wait,
meat?
the French fries are the bread.
Oh, I
The French
see.
fries are on the bottom, so when you put your fork in, you put your fork in so it goes through the meat, it passes through the meat and into the fry. The fry is like the base, and
Yeah.
then oh, into the mouth. Oh my gosh.
Man, that sounds good, Bo. You're making me hungry with that. So I wanna try that too when I get over there. Next time I
Yeah,
come around. Can you get
that
that in
is
the
the
States,
best.
Boat?
No, you can't.
Yeah,
I think it's
dadgummit.
illegal here.
We're getting
Yeah.
jobbed out on some of this stuff, Boat.
Most of the stuff we're getting
Our
jobbed out.
food is horrible. I mean, I don't mean
Yeah,
like it's not good. I mean, it's poorly designed. It's poorly made. Like our fast foods, it's all garbage now. It's really went downhill, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. Um, David Hearn says, "What's the best thing about living in a small town? And do you ever see yourselves becoming city slickers down the road?" So,
Um,
for
Go ahead,
me,
Boat.
the best part about living in a small town is when I want to go somewhere, I can get there, bam, instantly. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
man.
go anywhere. It doesn't take me longer than 30 minutes to get to. I never have to worry about traffic ever. I mean, like we've had some construction here recently, but there's a way around the construction, and the way around there's not traffic.
Not for me. There's
So
not.
the ability to get someplace without having to plan ahead and have to budget for traffic is undoubtedly the best thing about living in a small town.
Yeah, for me, I've lived in like now. Boats lived in some big towns. I've lived in some bigger towns. I lived in Huntington. I lived in Charleston. I lived in Lexington. I spent a good deal of time in Louisville. So I would say that's a pretty good gambit of like from small to mid-sized city. All right, I'd say Louisville's a mid-sized city.
Yeah.
And you're right. Just as much as I complain about it, like the traffic and the getting around. It's funny because you have to go further, but it still takes way less time to
Right.
get places.
Exactly.
Like I can
Exactly.
pick up Chad in like 25 minutes, and that's a what is it, a 35-mile drive from here to get to
Mhm.
Chad's house. Um, I like it because this is a stupid answer, but being in a small town is great because you're not in a big town. Like, I don't wanna be in a big town. I don't want a ton of people around. Having, like, tons and tons of people around makes me kinda nervous, especially now. I don't want tons and tons of cars. I was in Houston, and there's, like, acres and acres of interstate. I mean, like, the lanes go on infinite. They're just like and when you've got that much stuff going on, when you stop to consider the amount of people that live in that area, like, it's intimidating to me. I mean, we've talked about this boat. There's a square mile of, like, New York that's got more people in it, like, than our whole state. So, like,
Mhm.
ludicrous.
Right.
I mean, if you think about how that's madness.
Mhm.
I like looking over there and just seeing a bunch of hills and, like, woods and mountains. That's what I like. I don't wanna see a bunch of buildings and crap. I like the idea that, like, if I took the notion in, like, probably less than 10 minutes, I could be completely lost, like, in the woods, anywhere I go. These
Mhm.
seem stupid points, but they're true. And when you do give up a lot, can you do as much stuff as you can in the city? No. Are there as many can you go out in the middle of the night and do stuff? No. But for me, at my age now, I'm okay with that personally. So, and everything else you said, I agree with too, Boat.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see myself ever moving to a big city again. I did that when I was in my 20s. I lived in DC, lived in Virginia Beach, I lived in South Korea, I lived in Bangkok.
You,
It was nice when you're a kid, when you're not married, going out at night, having places to go. Now I don't care and I can't be bothered. I don't want to
you,
leave my house.
yeah.
I'm
You lived in
happy.
Bangkok, Boat. You had one night in Bangkok.
I had several.
How was that?
Several
I
nights
didn't know
there.
that. That's awesome.
Where did you think I lived in Thailand?
I didn't know. I didn't know you. I thought
Yeah.
you were like on the farm somewhere.
No, no, I lived in Bangkok. And so
Is the
um,
driving like that driving you showed me in that video? Is that the way they drive in real?
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I mean,
god.
that's an everyday fact of life. You know, I of course, I didn't drive. I took the motorcycle taxis, which are an experience in themselves. You
Yeah,
wanna feel like you've tasted death? Ride
yeah,
a motorcycle taxi.
yeah. Those looked insane, Boat. That's
Yeah,
crazy, man.
yeah, so I'm glad I had that experience because it makes me appreciate living and I don't understand why everybody doesn't wanna live in a town like, the size of the town that we live in is extremely small. It's so small, t less than 10,000 people live in Hurricane, but everything that I want to do or could care about doing is either here or within a 2-hour drive. You can get to Columbus 2.5 hours, and they've got whatever you could possibly imagine. I mean, it boggles my mind why more people don't want to live in an area like this. But I'm glad they don't. We don't want you. Stay out. We're full.
It's funny that you mentioned that because you're right. And the funny thing is, our town is in terms of West Virginia, like this area we're in is far and away the most populated and with the most like stuff to do. So we're sort of
Mhm.
lucky because you can live like in the triple stick somewhere, and
Oh yeah,
you're really screwed. So we get the
hmm
best of both worlds. So we're
we
very
do.
lucky.
We do. Spinny 108 asks, excuse me, when was the time you were most scared? Mine involved a haunted house in a disused hydro plant and a hockey mask wearing chainsaw wielding student.
I hope there was some sort of haunted house going on there that
Uh,
was like student based, as opposed. What's the most you ever been scared, Boat?
I told you about it on Conversations. It was when I used to go to my friend Logan's house out on Charlie's Creek, and
Yes.
he had those moaning pipes. Man, those
Yes.
moaning pipes. And I told you, did I tell you about how I took the stuffed dog, the carnival dog, and I laid it over my body so the
Yes.
ghost wouldn't get me?
You did
They can't
disturbingly
get to
mention
you.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
That's the
know,
most scared I've ever been.
to put it into context, because Charlie Creek, you know, how we just talked about like where they're pretty popular. Charlie Creek's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
it's way
nothing,
out. You know,
nothing.
um, the most scared I've ever been. I mean, I was there. I've almost been hit by cars, semi trucks, that sort of thing, many times. But in terms of just like I don't know, like mystical, scared, it's. I've been petrified up on the mountain so many times. It happened all the time. And the only time I ever felt comfortable up there is when I revised the door locks and windows of my house. My
Mhm.
door was so locked so tight, like you couldn't run through it with a car, and the window was screwed in, not nailed.
Mhm.
I mean, I put powered screws in it. So, and I
Mhm.
mean, and also the window was you couldn't get in that house. And so once I had completely secured the house, I was less scared because I thought, "Okay, I'm good to go." But before
Right.
that, I was scared, like, almost every night because 'cause I'd hear stuff in the woods or hear stuff,
Mhm.
that I thought would be voices and stuff. It was super scary. So,
Now
yeah, I was scared a lot.
you've been lucky enough to visit, many, many haunted houses with Teresa. The
Yeah.
Fallsburg Fearplex,
Well,
the truck
that's not
stop
a
there
real
on
haunted house.
35. Would you classify any of those, situations as scary situations for you?
Well, no. The Fallsburg Fearplex, I was scared that I waited all that time in the rain like an idiot. I'll tell you what, that's when the love died that night. I can tell you that right now. I knew the relationship was going down to Twale. And then the other, we've been to a bunch of haunted houses,
What
but
about that
no,
place on 35? The
no,
truck
it
stop,
wasn't. It
no?
was no, 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 no. I go to prisons. You understand? I go I work along actual legitimate monsters that do heinous things. So no, I'm not that scared of a guy in a hockey mask.
Alright. Let's see. Pajako6502 says, "What is the longest it has taken you to complete a project, and what was that project?"
Forever, all of them. I'm still trying to get the arcade back up in shape. I'm trying I'm trying to get my room clean. I'm trying to clean the house. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to like find a car. I've got projects going on all the time, and they never get done ever. I need
Yeah,
more
I mean,
me.
I don't know. Most of my projects when I set out, I don't try and take on too much. The project that will probably have taken me the longest when I finish it is this cross stitch project. It's 22,000 stitches.
Oh
And
God,
I can do about 100 stitches in an hour. So, and I don't cross stitch every day. And so
yeah.
it's probably going to take me 3 or 4 years to finish this thing. It's a project for my sister. That will probably be the longest thing. But other than that, I mean, a project that took a really long time was moving all of our podcast episodes onto Anchor. That took me several weeks of, like downtime at school and afternoons and evenings doing.
That's a
But
lot of episodes.
most of my other projects, and it was mostly because of the dumb UI in Anchor.
Yeah,
Most
it
of my
got
other
better.
projects, it's not. I do short term stuff.
If you count the show as a project, and I do because I needed success in my life, and if the show, even if no one watched the show, no one listened to it, the fact that I've done it week in, week out for all these years, like I consider that a successful project. It worked, and
Yeah,
so that I feel okay about that. I justify a lot of stuff because of this show. People don't even know. I need to buy this. I need to buy that. I should go rent this. Like, what would happen if I did that? It's stupid. It's stupid. A huge money hole, Bode. But it's gratifying.
Ravi asks, "What's the coolest stunt you have done?"
You wanna try that one on for size?
I if you ever saw any of my stunts, cool would not be the word that would come to mind. Um, I'm not athletic. I have no discernible physical attributes. So I never took my bike off any sweet ramps. I've wrecked my bike trying to do ramping and stuff like that, but no, it never ended up cool, and it never ended up with anything other than pain and embarrassment.
A lot, man. I'd forgotten about this a long time ago. I found there's a creek that runs in the backyard of my old house. This shows how I mean, we moved out of there when I was in like second grade. So, but there was a creek and there's a farm beside our house, and I built a ramp with the intention of being like Evil Knievel and jump in this creek on this bike.
Mhm.
The creek wasn't very wide. It was probably like at this one point I wasn't stupid, so I picked the place where it was the least wide. It's probably
Mhm.
like 3 foot, something like that. The spot, there's an overhang. And I actually did successfully leap the creek. No one was there to see it. And I remember like, man, because I barely made it. And I was like, even as a young idiot, I was like, I'm not doing that again. But I did
Well,
that.
that's
So I
it.
guess stunt
That
wise, that would
classifies.
be the one.
Yeah. That kills anything I've ever done. That's
Well,
awesome.
not by
You got
much,
any
but
you lived in a house before the house your parents live in now?
yeah, it's well. when we moved back from New Jersey, we lived in Nitro in an apartment for a while, and then
Mhm.
we lived, in a place in Hurricane called Mesa Manor, which is o
Oh,
off.
that's right down the road from me.
Yeah, and, we lived up there, and our house had a basement too, up there. We don't have a basement here. And but there the Balls lived next to me, and they had a farm, and I used to play in the creek there and play in the dirt, do kid stuff. That's how my young days were spent there. It was great after being in the apartment. The
Yeah.
apartment was okay.
How come you guys moved away from Mesa Manor?
Because I think Brent was, I'd say, part of it because they were mom had another kid coming, and so I guess they
Yeah,
got a deal. And it's funny to get in
yeah.
this house. They basically like the guy sold it to me, he wouldn't leave the house, and so I've just heard
Really?
about this recently, and so
Wow.
basically, like I think he was escorted to the door, if you know what I mean, and the money had went through. He'd been paid. He's like, "I'm not leaving." He's like, "Oh yes, you are," and so
Man,
he left. So yeah, I'll get the full scoop on that. That might be a fun story on down the road.
David Cavalieri asks, "Oh, great Jedi. What are your thoughts on snark in retro video game podcasting or podcasting in general?"
Oh, I thought he meant that little piece of crap from Thundercats.
Thundercats?
I
I'm
hated
for
Snarks.
him.
I hated that guy. I hate another
He
thing that
was
ruined a good show was that guy.
Yeah,
I guess he means like snarky comments. Is that what he means,
right,
Bode?
right.
Well, I mean, clearly we endorse them. That's literally the basis of everything we do. What?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not above a good burial, especially when it's deserved.
You're well,
But
yeah.
but I think that on the whole, we tend to look on the positive, and I try not to be incredibly cynical and sarcastic about everything all the time because it's the same reason why I don't like any of those Leslie Nielsen movies. When everything's funny, nothing's funny. And when everything's cynical and sarcastic and mean-spirited, then nothing is entertaining about that.
Man, I I'm getting ready to snark on you for bad mouthing the Leslie Nielsen movies. Are you kidding me? He's in some of the greatest films ever put.
No. All of his movies aren't funny because everything's a bit. And when
Not all
everything's
of
a
them
bit,
are funny,
nothing's a
but
bit.
most of them are funny. Like
All the Naked
Airplane,
Gun movies, I've
Naked
never seen a
Gun.
movie less funny than Naked Gun.
I do. I mean this. I mean, I pity you because those movies are so funny that they hurt you, and the fact that you can't find amusement that makes me sad for your sense of humor. I feel bad.
So be
You
it.
know, I will say, with all that said, snarkiness. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. Bode, you probably do too,
I do,
and
all the time.
you know, I don't like the direction that YouTube's going in terms of the stuff I watch. I can't say the whole YouTube's like this, but maybe it is. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like people are tripping over themselves to get the first word on this stuff that happens. They're unforgiving. People, just like American society, they love it when someone falls down or makes a mistake. They love to pile on. Everyone does the same. This new this new Miss Marvel movie's coming out as an example. That I don't. It's called The Marvels. All right,
Mhm.
and now and it's dog pile on this thing. Now I'm not saying it's gonna be a good movie. It's gonna be crap. But I mean, 5,000 commentators are chiming in on this thing. 5,000 commentators are chiming in on the new Ambernick handheld, and they all say the same stuff. So the coverage has gotten similar, but also the snark has gotten similar. Burials, real snarky, superior burials on people have become mainstream. That's because people get over, and people like to watch them. I guess because they get a lot of views. I mean, I'm like you. I like a good burial, quite a bit. But I mean, I don't know. It just, I'd hate to base my whole channel on just being mad and burying stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah,
gimmick. That's why people come around. Like I'm gonna be happy when I get done doing a show. I don't want to feel like bad or angry. You know what I mean?
right, right, and I think that that's, I tend to utilize the YouTube algorithm whenever I run across channels like that. I click on the "Don't recommend this channel to me," And I think that YouTube does a pretty good job. And also, I tend to only watch channels that I'm subscribed to, or I watch like last night. I watched this video. It was 5 hours of the BBC Four shipping report, which was a guy reading wind direction and speed and all the different bodies of water surrounding the UK, and I loved it. It was great.
Hmm.
So I watch a lot of wacky stuff on
I can
YouTube, is
see
what
why you
I'm
didn't think
saying.
Leslie Nielsen was funny now. It just occurred to me. Now I get it.
You might be onto something
If he'd
there.
been reading weather reports, you'd have been in stitches.
I would have been. There's nothing better. So I've clicked. I made your video big because I wanted to see your face more, but now I can't see the questions. Um,
Why do you want more of my
Control
face?
Control Reese asks, "What is the best game ever, and why is it Rock and Roll Clams?"
Oh, listen,
Uh,
Reese, you're a big time player. If you love rock and roll clams so much, I'm waiting for your video dedicated to a coverage of rock and roll clams. Get in there, pal. And make it happen. That's an game, but we played this back in the day. I believe it also have like an Amiga release too, if I'm not
no,
mistaken.
because that was back when we were only doing ST
Oh
releases that didn't come out on the Amiga.
man, that was some slim pickings. So
It
no,
was.
we
It
hate
was. It
rock
was a
and roll
poor idea
clams.
on my part. Yeah.
If I may
Yeah.
say, Bode, we don't come here to praise rock and roll because we came here to bury rock and roll because they should stay buried, never to be dug up again.
In the sand, as they are.
Hmm.
David Cavalieri writes, "More annoying couple, Taylor and Travis or Jada and Tupac?"
Well,
I don't know who Jada and Tupac is.
you don't know who Tupac Shakur is? You don't know who
Yeah,
that
but
is?
Tupac's been dead for like 40
Yeah, I'm
years.
gonna go with the
How was he still
Kelsey.
annoying people?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, like, I'm not irritated that they're a couple. You know, I don't hate Taylor Swift. That guy's a good football player. So good for him. He's like hooked up with a, you know, pretty, super wealthy, talented chick. He's a good
Right.
looking husky, killer leader of men. Good
Mhm.
luck. Have some. I mean, hey, if it lasts, great. If not, but I don't want to see it every 2 seconds. That's the annoying thing.
So really your annoyance is more at the coverage, especially during the NFL games, than the
I'm
actual
annoyed at the
couple themselves.
coverage, full stop, with or without them being involved. If I go back and watch old football games, and the commentary is so much more intelligent and less irritating, it's unbelievable how irritated I get now.
Who is your least favorite commentator in the NFL? Is it Romo?
No, I think Romo's sort of a breath of fresh air. You know,
Collinsworth?
I don't like Collinsworth. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that whole team
You
anymore.
don't like Tirico? I like Tirico. He's like
Tarico's
Jim Nance.
okay. He's
Yeah.
okay.
Ricky DeRocher, our final question of the evening. Which game or system that was hyped but ultimately ended up being canceled makes you the saddest?
Which what or what now? What was it?
Which game or system that got a lot of hype but ultimately ended up being canceled makes you the saddest?
You start off there. I'm gonna have to think for a second.
Uh, when I was a kid, of course, I was all in on Nintendo. That was my thing. And Nintendo sent out this VHS tape. I guess it was to all Nintendo Power subscribers, or maybe they just had my address because they knew about me. And they it was a Final Fantasy VII. It's coming, and they showed pictures of it on the N64, and I was so incredibly hyped because at that point in my life, I was all in on Japanese role playing games, and I was like, finally, it's been years. I'm ready for a new Final Fantasy game, and then these upstarts, Sony, came along and stole it away. Of course, I had no idea about what actually happened between
Yeah.
Sony and Nintendo, and how Sony or Nintendo sort of screwed Sony in some ways. But at the time, I was just like, "This sucks," and I was super sad. But I've never. I mean, listen, video game. I am not what you call a lifer when it comes to video games. I like video games, but I have never been filled with rage, joy, despair, or any major emotion about any video game announcement or cancellation. I just don't care that much.
I It's funny, the Nintendo they triple screwed themselves and by the way, what makes that story more hilarious is, like, we're kicking Sony to the curb so we can get in bed with the CDI. Yeah,
Right,
oh,
with
yeah.
Philips.
Let's get in
That's
there with the
yeah.
CDI, and then
Yeah.
they release those atrocities on that
Yeah.
god awful system. A couple things come to my mind system-wise. In fact, I think of systems that I wish hadn't been released because they took a great system and turned it to crap. PCFX comes to mind, which took the
Mm,
great PC Engine and just crapped all over. And that other thing that they released was also crap. So that was one that comes to mind of stuff that they shouldn't have released. A couple that come to mind is the M2, which was the successor for the 3DO. I heard about this thing for years about how this thing was going to be the king dong of systems, and so I was always depressed when it didn't get released. I'd like to have seen what it could have at least done in terms of being super awesome because the 3DO was released with a lot of hype and it just
mhm,
didn't deliver. But because
right.
M2 was a big deal. So that's a real bummer. They were working on a sequel to COH when it was out before they got the plug pulled. I'd like to see what that would have been with the original team because they were all in and COH was so great. And I think to myself, if you'd had these guys working on something with more powerful hardware and more stuff, it could have been really awesome. So that in terms of games, that one right there comes to mind. Funny thing about consoles and computers is when you think about stuff that didn't get released, it probably like for remember when the Neptune was coming out for Sega and
Mhm,
some of the stuff, it probably would have gotten killed. And that's one of the reasons you don't. If you would spend all that money, the last thing you want to do is not put it out there. But I mean, they got canceled for a reason. They were going to die a
mhm,
horrible death, and
right.
so it makes it
You
easy
know,
to not feel that bad about it.
I wanna I said that video game stuff doesn't make me sad. That's not exactly true. This particular question, nothing has made me sad, but I always got sad towards the end of a system's life because like you always know it's coming. When you've got the thing and there's the new thing coming out and you know that you're not going to get that thing because your parents aren't going to get it for you,
Yeah.
that you're going to be suffering while everybody's playing the new thing. That happened to me with the Nintendo, that happened to me with the Super Nintendo, it happened to me with the N64. Whenever the new hotness comes along and you
Don't forget
start
the
seeing that,
Atari computer. I'm sure that
yeah,
happened to you then too.
well, oh my gosh, it was the worst with the
Yeah,
Atari
that's
computer.
that's why I was surprised you didn't mention that one
Yeah,
because
I
I
forgot
that's the
totally
worst
about that. 'Cause
when your computer dies.
that's when I was getting Antic Magazine, and then when Antic Magazine changed their name to
Yeah,
Start, the Atari computer, I was like, "God, it's over, it's
yeah,
over."
yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the worst, but that was always a horrible feeling because you felt like you were literally getting left behind because you were.
Magazines are a great compass or a prognosticator for the future. I used to get Rainbow for the Coco. That thing was like that thick, and then it was
Mhm.
that thick, and then it was that thick. Then it was a pamphlet, and then it was gone. I used to get,
Yeah.
back when I used to be into PC hardware, I'd get those computer shoppers, and every month they were the size of like a phone book with
Mhm.
ads and all kinds of crap. I was just like, my God, I'm in heaven. And then that thing shrank and shrank and shrank, and then it was gone. It's funny how it works. And you're right. When you see the next thing that's coming out and you've got the other thing, and you're like, man, I don't know if I can afford the next thing. Or maybe, another thing that makes me sad is when the next thing's coming out and you're like, wait a minute, you haven't barely scratched the surface of this current thing. Like the
Mhm.
Dreamcast, like that thing
Mhm.
had tons of potential. It never got fulfilled. And but it was time to go. And so that was sad because there was no next thing. So yeah, it's sad. But at the end of the day, you've got to put things in perspective. All like for example, I missed the Coco and you missed the Atari when they came out, but now we're running these things on a handheld, and we're
Right.
storing the entire game library on an SD card. So the good thing about being a retro gaming person is like you can at least go back and have the ultimate version of whatever it is you wanted, which is probably why these crazy Amigas are so popular. We were talking about earlier. It's because you're always striving to be the king dong of the system that got away.
That's right. That's right. Well, with that, folks, we bring another edition of Ask the Amigos to a close. We want to thank all of our Patreon community for asking such awesome questions, and we will see you next time. Until then,
Adios.
adios.